Something really bad is happening with all the pages connected to Israel on Wikipedia. I've already shown how one Wikipedia page got the things really wrong in a video about the collaboration between the Arabs and the Nazis. This week, I've been taking a deeper dive into pages connected to the Arab-Israeli conflict, and I've been shocked by what I've discovered. Let's jump right in with the page on the 1948 war in Palestine. The 1948 Palestine War was fought in the territory of what had been, at the start of the war, British-ruled Mandatory Palestine. The first sentence is true. Let's keep going. During the war, the British withdrew from Palestine, Zionist forces conquered territory and established the State of Israel, and over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled. Wait a minute. The British withdrew, and then what? The Zionists started conquering land, like out of the blue? There is a part missing here. Let me fill in the blanks for you. So, the British had no desire to stay in the region, as they had enough problems to contend with at home after the Second World War. They gave the mandate back to the UN. The UN called for a two-state solution. Neither the Jews nor the Arabs liked the proposal, but the Jews were willing to compromise, whereas the Arabs just said no and started a war. I think it is kind of important to mention this and to make it clear who started the war. I mean, imagine reading something like this about World War II. The tensions between Germany and Poland escalated into war, resulting in 7 million German dead, 14 million German refugees, and Germany losing 25% of its land, mainly to Poland. Now, technically, everything I just said is true. 7 million Germans died in the war, and 14 million German refugees had to leave the eastern part of Germany, and that land did become Poland. If you leave out the part that Germany started the war in order to expand its territory, and that the Germans fully intended to murder all the Polish Jews and enslave the Polish population, then you might get the impression that the Poles were the aggressors here. And we're not just talking about a single minor inaccuracy confined to one page. There are dozens of pages on the Arab-Israeli conflict in 1948. And what's really crazy is that there is no sign anywhere of the basic fact that the Arabs rejected the two-state solution plan and immediately started the war by killing Jewish civilians. Even on the page about the partition plan, it says, they, the Arabs, announced their intention to take all necessary measures to prevent the implementation of the resolution. A civil war broke out in Palestine, and the plan was not implemented. A civil war broke out, again, out of thin air. And now to the craziest part on this page. Down below, under subsequent events, it says, it was followed by outbreaks of violence in Mandatory Palestine between Palestinian Jews and Arabs, known as the 1947-1948 Civil War. And look what it says next to the picture of the bus. Memorial site for the first shots of 1948 Arab-Israeli War, where 7 people were killed on the day after the resolution. 7 people? Maybe Jews that were murdered by Arabs? This proves beyond any doubt that this is not just a mistake. Wikipedia has been hijacked by pro-Palestinians who have distorted the historical facts. These Wikipedia pages go into great detail about why the partition plan wasn't fair on the Arabs. They don't say why it wasn't fair on the Jews. Wikipedia also fails to mention the fact that back in 1948, the Arabs never said, we've been given 40%, but we actually want 60 or 70%. The Arabs said one thing and one thing only. We are against a Jewish state of any size, or in their own words, as the leader of the Arabs in Palestine put it, Arabs, kill the Jews wherever you find them. This pleases God, history, and religion. This saves your honor. God is with you. I could give you any number of quotes of Arab leaders calling for the murder of Jews. But please take note, not one of the Arab leaders said they would accept a Jewish state on whatever percentage it may be of the land. In other words, it was never about size. Let's continue with the main article. The war had two main phases, the first being the 1947-1948 Civil War, which began on 30 November 1947, a day after the United Nations voted to adopt the partition plan for Palestine, which planned for the division of the territory into Jewish and Arab sovereign states. This is true. There were two phases to the war. Again, they forgot to mention that the Arabs started them both. The first phase occurred when the British were still here. This is when the local Arabs started to murder Jews, mainly on the roads. The second phase started the second the British left, and that was when all the Arab armies surrounded Israel, invaded Israel to eliminate the Jews. Let's keep going. Initially on the defensive, the Zionist forces switched to the offensive in April 1948, in anticipation of the invasion by Arab armies. They enhanced Plan Dalet, an operation aimed at securing territory for the establishment of the Jewish state. There are so many lies in these two sentences alone. But here is the proof that the writer of this article knew they were lying, which is even worse than just being ignorant. Initially on the defensive. So they do recognize that the Arabs were the ones who started the war and attacked the Jews for months. But somehow they just didn't want to write it. For the first 4 months of the war, the Arabs murdered hundreds of Jews, many on the roads. During this time, the Arabs also laid siege to many Jewish villages. The Jews had to move in protected convoys. In March 48, 4 convoys were attacked, and dozens of Jews were murdered. Their bodies were desecrated. But too many places were under siege, among them Jerusalem, the biggest Jewish city. So the convoy tactic didn't work, and the Jews had to move to the offensive if they wanted to survive. And yes, they conquered the Arab villages along the roads in order to put an end to the sieges. Now, I understand the shock felt among the Arabs. They were the ones who were accused of being the aggressors when they attacked the Jews in 1920, 21, 29, 36, and 47. And then in March and April 48, the Jews retaliated. The Arabs, who had been very comfortable in the position of bully, found themselves losing their grip. Now, I could go on and on as there are so many lies as there are sentences in this article. But I don't want to get bogged down in the details. You might be saying to yourself, this guy is just pro-Israel. So I want to give you the ultimate proof that this article has been hacked by pro-Palestinians. Let's say you are looking for an article on any other war on Wikipedia. Then you would probably expect to see the names of the leaders, right? It would be strange to read about World War II without mentioning Hitler, would it? After all, he started the war, and he was kind of a key figure. Now, on this page about the 1948 war, the Israeli leader, Ben-Gurion, is mentioned 14 times. That makes sense. And how many times is the leader of the Arabs in Palestine mentioned? 0. His name only appears in the chart to the side. That doesn't make sense. So let's take a closer look at it. Now, why would the person who wrote this article want to hide the name Amin al-Husseini, the name of the leader of the Arabs? 2 reasons. The first is that in order to make the Arabs look like victims, it is better not to draw attention to the fact that they had a militant war leader. But they did. The name of their leader is Haj Amin al-Husseini. He spent the duration of World War II in Nazi Germany with all the other leaders of the Arabs in Palestine. From Berlin, they broadcast propaganda in Arabic, calling for the Arabs to kill all Jews in Arab countries. This might be the reason why the writer of this Wikipedia page decided to erase him from history. Hajj Amin al-Husseini doesn't make the Arabs of Palestine look so good. He doesn't fit the narrative. It is not just the leader of the Arabs that miraculously disappeared. Jewish immigration is, of course, mentioned, but there is no word about Arab immigration to Palestine. Hundreds of thousands of Arabs came to mandatory Palestine looking for work because where you have Jews and Christians, you have prosperity. Half of the people of Gaza are Egyptians who came to work for the British or arrived a few years before that. Yasser Arafat, the best known face of the Palestinians, who always said that he was born in Jerusalem, was born in Egypt. Jewish immigration is a topic that is given plenty of space on Wikipedia, but Arab immigration might as well not exist. Something else that hints at the fact that pro-Palestinians have messed up this article, and this may be a bit higher level, is the commentary on the King David Hotel bombing. Pro-Palestinians just love to mention this. As you can see, the Jews carried out a campaign of acts of terror and sabotage against British rule. Among these attacks was the 1946 King David Hotel bombing, killing 91. I've talked about this in an older video, so I won't talk about it again here. Right now, I want to talk about Wikipedia. If you scroll up a bit, under the 1936 Arab Revolt, it says, "The peasant-led Arab Revolt." No mention of terror attack, no mention of the 262 British soldiers that they killed. All that is said is that the brutal suppression of the revolt by the British significantly weakened the Palestinian Arabs in advance of the 1948 war. Now, if it was just one page, you might say, okay, and kind of ignore it. But there is a whole network of pages, dozens, if not hundreds of pages, that are all full of lies and misleading information. And they all lead you to pages about fake massacres and the Palestinian refugees. And that should not be ignored. During the war, massacres and acts of terror were conducted by and against both sides. A campaign of massacres and violence against the Arab population, such as occurred by Lydia and Ramle and the Battle of Haifa, led to the expulsion and flight of over 700,000 Palestinians. Interestingly, no massacres of Jews are mentioned. In the Hadassah medical convoy, the Arab murdered 78 doctors and nurses. And as they always do, they desecrated the bodies. It was the same in the Kfar Etzion massacre, during which the Arabs murdered 127 Jews after they had surrendered. In all these Wikipedia pages, you won't find a single mention of the fact that not one Jew was left alive in the Arab territories, whereas 160,000 Arabs carried on living in the new Jewish state. So do you see the pattern here? On the Battle of Haifa page, which is given as an example, it says that Haifa's Arab population was subjected to acts of terrorism by the Irgun and Haganah. This is misleading, as the Arabs were the first to kill Jews in Haifa, with 3 Jews being murdered on 7th of December 47 and another 4 being killed 2 weeks later. Somehow, on Wikipedia, it seems that only Jews commit acts of terror against Arabs. Jews, on the contrary, they just die, usually without even getting a mention, and they are definitely not getting killed in any acts of terror committed by the Arabs, according to Wikipedia. The article also fails to mention that the Jewish mayor of Haifa called on the Arabs of Haifa to stay and promised that they would not be harmed if they did not fight. Do you think that any Arab mayor said this to any Jewish communities? In Gaza, in Hebron, and in the old city of Jerusalem? The Arabs wiped out all the Jews, although the Jews had been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I will finish this video with a page dedicated to one of the biggest lies of the last century, the Palestinian refugees. So many Wikipedia pages contain reference that lead readers to this page about the Palestinian refugee problem. Guys, at the time that Israel was established in 1947, 1948, India was established too, as were Pakistan and the two Germanys and the two Koreas and Syria and Lebanon and China. Do you know how many people had to move and became refugees as a result of wars and changing borders in those years? Around 40 million people. All of these 40 million people, Jewish refugees, German refugees, Polish refugees, Hindu refugees, Pakistani refugees, Chinese refugees, started a new life elsewhere. Only the Arabs of Palestine, who lost a war that they started, have retained this special privileged status of being able to call themselves refugees. Today, there are 10 times more Palestinian refugees than there were 80 years ago. This is insane. The fake Palestinian refugees receive more money than the real refugees in the world. And this isn't something that you will read about on any of these Wikipedia pages. Wikipedia is extremely important. Millions of people open it every day and expect to get reliable information from it. People who read these articles are not aware that they have fallen into a network of hundreds of anti-Israeli pages, which are disguised as regular pages. I need your help to share this with the world. I've done my best to make this video as clear as it can be. I'm sure that there are good people at Wikipedia who need to be informed about this scandal and fix it. By the way, this is only the English version. I'm sure that it is the same in other languages. Help me to get the word out there. If you have followers on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, then share it. If you know people at Wikipedia, then send it to them. This is too important to ignore. Please share this video. See you next week. Yalla bye.